Hi, hi. Pleased to meet
Firstly,
you.
nice to meet you. Firstly, very thank you very much for coming to my show and accepting to be on my show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to participate. I like what you're doing, and I didn't watch all of them, but I view a couple of very interesting interviews you did on your YouTube channel. Very cool.
And you're my valuable guest as well. So I thought to tell about you and the work that you're doing to my audience.
For sure, for sure. So my name is Torbjörn, which is a Swedish name. I'm from Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. I could see that I'm not the first Swedish guest. There was a lady earlier on your channel, right? Um, Anyhow, my name is Torbjörn, and I'm an IBM Power expert. You can say. So I work as a full-time contractor for IBM, and so I'm not an IBMer, so I speak solely for myself. But I'm working with them in the initiative, long-term initiative, working towards their ISV community. So, IBM makes the hardware, and they make really, really good hardware servers, which is, they have two different kinds. So they have mainframes, the big Z systems, but I'm working with the power system brand. So, and the ISVs, which is independent software vendors, are the companies out there creating software that runs on power. So, traditional business applications, for example, ERP, CRM systems, but also what we call tool vendors. So these are the vendors that produce DevOps toolings, for example, that runs on power, for example. And I've been working around this platform since I started my career in 1997. Back then I was working for IBM on the platform. Back then the name was AS400. It changed the name a couple of times, but since 2008 the operating system name is IBM I, and it runs on the hardware called IBM Power. And I've been very engaged in the user group community. So I was leading the Swedish, and that is a strong user group community, I would say, from the IBM I point of view, with that area in focus. So I was very engaged in the Swedish local user group for 10 years. Exactly 10 years. I was leading for 7 of them, and also was engaged, and now I'm back engaged in the European level. So I'm the vice president of the umbrella organization for Europe. Common Europe is the organization. So again, thank you for inviting me here.
So you are into this and you saw the evolution of the technology and what made you to do what you are doing now.
Well, it's different reasons, of course, but it's this platform is a really, really good platform, and it's a platform that relatively few people knows about, right? It's out there. Hundreds of thousands of companies are running it, but it's such a great IT or application platform. So it's well hidden. It just works, which means there's few problems with them. There's not a lot of noise. It just do what it does, supporting the business with the application running. But this is a unique system, especially the IBM I operating system, which is very unique in many ways and very, very innovative, right? So, for example, in the operating system, there is a relational database built into the operating system. So you can say that the native file system is a relational database, right? And you have this was built for multi-user functionality from the beginning, not if you look at Linux and Windows, it was to begin with mainly for one user, right? And then everything changed, and now they have to solve a lot of issues with different technologies to make you able to share the data and share the applications with other users. This was built from the beginning with this as a purpose, which is it is amazing. So everybody who starts learning about it, they really, really love it. And that's probably the reason why I'm so very engaged in the both working. I'm happy to work with it full time, but also why I'm so engaged in the user group community.
So what businesses uses this?
Sorry?
What kind of businesses uses this?
It's all kind of businesses. So a lot of manufacturing, a lot of financial institutions or banks, a lot of credit card application runs very well. Insurance, actually, I would say everywhere more or less. And it's whatever relation database is the best choice of your data. It should run, from my perspective, on IBM, and often it does, right? So it's very, very common out there. And you can see on IBM's websites a lot of client stories and so on. You can see there from all sizes, but also from all areas. So everything more or less, I would say.
I can see you're working on this from long time. So what kind of experience that you have on this?
Well, I started my career in '97 as a hardware engineer, so hardware support guy. So which means going out to the customer and replacing back then hard disk drives and such, right, to fix the servers. And then I was responsible for what was called the BCRS, which stands for Business Continuity and Recovery Services, which was a service that IBM in Sweden, well, all around the world, but could offer the client. So normally you have just one server because it's so reliable and it rarely goes down, right? You never restart it, it just goes. But of course, emergency cases could happen, right? So fire or flooding or something like that. Then there was a service called BCRS where you can pay for this replacement system, right? So in case of emergency, you can dial IBM and they could ship a server that you could restore your backup from. So, and luckily enough, that not often happen, right? But what we did back then was to offer customers to come to Stockholm and do this, we call it a recovery exercise, right? So they took the backup tapes, I put together an environment for them so it had enough capacity and storage and so on, and they start installing the operating system, well, the application and everything from backup. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Then I started working around as a sales guy, and I also worked for an ISV, a French ISV in the DevOps area. So I moved from hardware, which was actually, the reason was my engagement in the community. I could see, and we started focus on the application development, right? Because we said that without great software or business applications, there is no need for the servers, right? So, and I worked for this DevOps company from France for a couple of years, which made me much more, well, I'm not a developer myself, but I know pretty good about the development, the DevOps methodology and so on, and how it works. And I would say how it should work, because a lot of our IBM clients and members are really old-fashioned when it comes to development. Not all, many are, and IBM are pushing them today very good to be in the front end of using the latest methodologies and technologies and so on. But there is still a lot of application vendors and also companies who make their own software using green screen only for coding and so on. And we try to push them into IDEs that are modern, right? So this is what I do a lot today, talking about application modernization and so on.
So why you created IBMI competence, and also what kind of problems that you want to solve?
So this is a good question. IBMI competence is actually not more than a portal today. So the problem I tried to solve was that a lot of people say, even we could see company leaving the platform because no one knows about IBMI. No one knows about RPG, which is the main application development language. And I said, well, no, you're wrong. There's plenty of experts out there. So, and also I grew my the network of people through my engagement in the community, right? So I just created this IBM competence website, and I start publishing, people's bio in there and what they could offer, so their specialities and what they could offer to the market. So some of them are IBMers, but a lot are just freelancers. They are consultant firms or experts in different areas. Could be programmers, could be system management people, security experts, or whatever. So there's a lot of traffic going on there every month, I can see. So I hopefully helping out somewhat to change the view of this is a platform that few people knows about. Many knows about it.
So from 4 years, what kind of problems you solved?
Come in, the last 4 years?
Yeah, you started it 4 years before. So how many problems?
Okay,
Yeah.
I started, you mean my company name is Built on Power, so that's my company I have today, right? So IBM Competence is just a portal. Okay. I started it in soon it will be 4 years, and then, the majority of my work today is actually around the ISVs, right? To reach out to ISVs, to talk to them about the latest technologies coming out from IBM, because some of them, they don't have much relation to IBM, or they didn't have before we started this initiative. So some of them are, of course, really good and in the front end and knowing everything. They go to conferences, they talk directly to IBM, but a lot of ISVs has, for different reasons, not grow apart from IBM perhaps, but they become isolated more or less. They just do their application, they do the change, whatever the customers are asking for, but they don't listen so much to IBM. And that's a problem, because there is so much going on from IBM, from the labs all around the world from IBM, and they should know about it because it helps them. And they are very, very happy when we are reaching out. And now we can see they start using newer technology and the newer toolings, and they start going to conferences and start being active again, which is really good for everybody, for customers, for themselves, and for IBM, of course, because IBM has the interest to, for example, sell the latest hardware, the latest generation, which is Power 10 today. They are interested in selling the latest operating system and so on. So yeah, it's really great. This is what I've done mostly, I would say. And now we're in the planning maybe that's another question, but right now we're planning for the largest IBM and Power user group event next year, which will be in Prague. So the Common Europe, again, the organization I'm vice president for. We're arranging a conference in Prague for 3 days, and the focus will be power and hardware related, but also IBM, the operating system, and they are both are very. We cannot go into that level now, perhaps, but that's very. They're very tight built together. The hardware and software, everything is built by IBM, right? So, but also we're going to add some content around storage nowadays, IBM storage, and also AIX Linux. So this is the other two operating systems that runs on the same servers. So that's really great, and we hopefully will get around. Well, I'm aiming for 400 participants. Well, 300 over 300 this year, 320, and now we're hopefully extending it to 400 or beyond. We will see.
And what is the price of it? What is the cost?
To participate in the conference?
No, not for the conference, but for the service that you're doing.
Okay. My service is it's price based normally, but I'm a full-time contracted by IBM. So normally I don't go outside of IBM offering any services. There are some small companies that I'm helping since before with maintenance agreements and selling and that kind of things, but normally I don't offer it. What I do instead, I'm helping, if there are customers or companies out there with a need, I help them finding the right expert. So I'm very good at helping, both consultant firms to find customers, but also customers or companies finding the right skilled people to solve their issues.
And you help for Europeans.
Yes, I would say so. Well, a little bit on the US market as well. I at least talk to a good number of ISVs that I know well, but mainly about what's happening and what's going on, and because one of the big things that I also do is that I do a daily newsletter about IBM and different IBM technologies. So if you go to builtonpower.com, you can select the different topics that you're interested in. So I'm keeping myself first of all updated about what is happening all around the world, right? So what I'm doing, I'm using technology called RSS or ATOM, so two similar technologies to get updates from a website, right? So I have this RSS reader. So I collect information from 350 or now, around 350, 400 different sources, which gives me per day around 150 to 250, depending on what day and what time of year, updates. So I go through all of them every day and tag them into the different areas. So if you're interested in IBM Power and AIX, for example, which is the Unix operating system, you will get the daily newsletter with only content that I have tagged manually for IBM Power and AIX. So this is what I also talk a lot about companies, not just in Europe, but in the US as well, to make sure that they know what's happening and also give them ideas how to help them to get on my newsletter. So this is, that's a lot of my, not daily job, because this is something I do as a hobby, so it's on my spare time, but it's early morning and in the evenings I do this newsletter.
So what kind of requirements that your customers or your client comes with?
Sorry, come again?
What kind of requirements and needs your customers or clients comes with?
Well, I would say the majority is to modernize application. The word modernizing is not very maybe correct, but extending and enhancing applications with new technology. So it all depends, but this platform has been around since very long. We have companies using application from the 70s, still running their business on top of this code, right? But you need to do something. We don't do applications the same way as we did in the 70s, right? And we don't have the same user interface. We have something else. So first of all, I talk to a lot of companies and ISVs as well that needs help in these modernization initiative or projects, right? So it could be just going from monoliths, which was the way you did programming back in the heydays. So big programs with thousands of lines of codes. You did it for good reasons, performance and storage. Back then, hard disk drives, megabyte, or you were even paying per byte, right? So you saved a lot of space in that. The problem, though, was that a big application like that has a lot of things that is related to each other. So it's very scary and a risky thing to change those programs because there could be something else down the line that is affecting it. So this is a reason why both RPG and COBOL application from the 70s and 80s or 90s, you can even see Java programs programmed in the same way. They are stuck, right? So you don't touch them, which is a problem because you have to change things and your business needs new functionality and new things. What we're helping with them is to go from monolithic applications to today often microservices, for example, but not just microservices, but other ways of smaller programs and so on. So you have this microservice architecture, you could say, smaller programs that you can change and add and remove functionality. But that's and also of course the user interface. Still have the 5250, which is a great user interface. I would start with saying that, because when you're a system admin, for example, it's a tremendous advanced user interface. But as an end user, there are options today, right? So, for example, if you're an end user and you are helping renting cars, whatever, right? The green screen is not very good at describing the car, perhaps. You need to use GUI, graphical user interface, where you can add pictures, for example, and so on. And that has been going on since the early 2000s, I would say. The whole green screen to GUI interface. But what we can see today is, of course, start using AI, for example, to enhance this, not just the user interface, but the way how you're using the applications. So there's a lot of things going on in this area as well when it comes to AI, for example, business analytics and all that kind of. I mean, because the data is there, because always, if there's an IBM application running on the company, it has tremendous value in the data. This is where the business critical data relies on this, right? So what we've seen before, a lot of things was done outside of the box. So business analytics or BI was done on the x86 server, Windows server somewhere, pointing or moving the data to a data lake or server farms somewhere running Windows, for example. Okay. Instead, what we're saying, you should run that on the same box where the data is. You don't have to move it. It is actual data. It's not the data was extracted during the night batch or something. So it's not old data which happens in the past. So this is also what's happening a lot. They're using projects that is removing the surrounding servers, right? So companies that have those Windows servers for integration or for BI, they're replacing them and building things on the business application server, so on IBM instead, which is good for different reasons, right? Just the server sprawls to have many servers instead of just one. It costs money. So investment in servers and maintenance in servers and backup and restore and licensing, right? So we've seen a lot of projects like that going open source and so on. I have long answers, I see. You come with short questions and I talk for 5 minutes. I'm sorry about that.
It will be very clear for my audience to understand it.
Okay, that's good.
So, what sizes of businesses you help for? What is the smallest and the biggest size you worked for?
Well, so when I talked about ISVs, I'm focused on the bigger ones, right? So there is a handful in Europe, a handful which has thousands of customers. In Europe, it's so if you compare the US market and the European market, it's different. Then you have 10, 15 really big ISVs that has the majority of the market. In Europe, it's different. You have a lot of smaller ISVs as well, because the market was and is still a lot around language, right? So ISVs from Italy, they just have a solution for mainly the Italian market, I would say. France the same way, Germany the same way, Sweden was the same way, but that's another story. But day to day, I'm mostly focused on the bigger ones. But we're working in different ways with the smaller ones as well, because they are important, right? The big ones are the ones that sells the most boxes or most servers for IBM, of course. But together, all the smaller ones are adding up the same amount, more or less. So that's yeah. But they are so they have customers, and ISV has their customers. So say 1,000 companies using their ISVs, but in turn they have, of course, thousands of customers. So it's well, a lot of users out there using application running on IBM, I would say.
So how your service helps any company to modernize their applications?
Well, my company, again, I don't do the modernization projects myself, right? But I'm helping them to find the right tooling often, and experts as well. So, of course, IBM often have their own toolings. So earlier this year, for example, IBM announced you could say an application modernization platform. It's called Merlin, but it's an IDE with a set of tools and toolings for modernizing applications, and also continue development, because there's an IDE, so you do that. And DevOps things, you put this in Git and GitHub and Git technologies and so on, right? The whole DevOps cycle. I mean, this is a huge difference in culture. If you go back, and still today, often this is the case, there was just one or two developers, right? So there was no real need for tooling. They have the release, the version management in their head, right? Or maybe an Excel file where they keep the track of the changes they've done. And another thing with talking about this is how you, with the coding. I mean, the coder back then, they didn't share their code, more or less. They solved the problem and they compiled, and everything should run. If you look how younger people, well, not just younger people, but how modern application developers are doing, and sometimes, well, they are forced to do it as well, share their code, right? And if you look at the DevOps cycle, this is, well, not always, but it should be that someone check your code and grant it for, okay, this is good for production, or they share it. But this has been not conflict, but a little bit of conflict sometimes. When the elder generation, they're not willing to share their code in that way. But of course, you should push them to do it, because if you share, you can get many ideas of what to do something different, and just be proud. If you think you solved something in a good way, it's good. Show it to others, and they will be impressed. So, but it has been, and it's still going on, a little bit of different in culture, how you developed and how you should develop an application today.
Great. And also, you are a contractor for IBM.
Yes.
So can you tell me more about it?
Well, this is what I do for them. So this is I have bosses on the inside of IBM, and they are I'm in working with them with the ISV community, so reaching out to ISV, and we are also arranging events for ISV. So in Alicante early this year, we had this ISV day where we invited ISVs from Europe, and we could sit down together with IBMers and experts from the labs and the IBM Europe and the US. So this is what I do as a contractor. And also try to find new ISVs. So we have these traditional ones that has been even from the 70s, right? On power already today. But we also, of course, try to extend to find new ISVs, so new applications to run on this server platform. Not always IBM I, then it's easier to get a Red Hat, well, Linux, for example. And IBM acquired Red Hat a couple of years ago. So to go out and see applications or solutions that is built on top of Linux that normally runs on x86 servers, we try to convince them to look at Power instead, because Power has a number of benefits, right? So it's very, very, very efficient CPU architecture compared to x86 And as I said, the stack is owned by IBM, so they produce all the hardware and firmware, all the levels and operating system, which you see it gives a lot of benefits around the reliability, security, not at least, and this is a good thing. And sustainability, this is a big thing today, right? So you can save a lot of energy. So electricity, for example, to run on power service instead of x86. Scalability. So this is maybe one of my favorite areas actually. So if you look at the x86 server, you pretty easy reach the limits of the capacity of the server. You solve it by buying another server, then you scale out, right? And you install a new operating system, you install the database or application, and you scale like that. On IBM Power, we scale up, which means I think the biggest Power 10 server has 240 cores, so CPUs, right? And then you have multi-threaded CPUs, which on x86 you have a maximum 2 threads per core. IBM Power has 8. So then you can see you have 240 cores times 8 threads, which is almost 2,000 threads, right? So this is how you can scale. So the capacity or the scalability, that's never a problem with those customers, right? They can add more CPUs, and very, very few are used. I think one of the biggest IBM I partitions in the world has around 100 cores on one instance of the operating system. And this is a huge company. So yeah, and that's why we try to find new vendors, porting them. And also Linux today, and back maybe 5, 6, 7 years, there was 2 different architectures. So it was different running in Linux on x86, and it was called Big and Little Endian, right? So this is very technical, but it was different. So you had to develop different applications and compile them differently and for different, well, you have to do that still depending on the language. But anyhow, they made this change a couple of years ago so that it's both Little Endian on Power server and on as well as on x86 servers, which means you have this application running on x86 today. It's pretty easy to make it running on Power servers. And one of the good things with that is because of the scalability, the majority, I would say 99% of the existing Power customers have spare capacity. They're not using all the CPUs. Actually, most of the smaller companies has at least 4 to 8 or even more cores just laying around, not used, right? They have this IBM I application, for example, using 1 core, and the minimum is 4 cores, and you have 6, 8 cores depending on the server you're using. But anyhow, then our message is that, well, if you have some other application, could be Linux on x86, move that to your existing server because of several reasons. One is, of course, unused capacity, right? You paid for the server already. It's already in your data center or often managed somewhere as you outsource it somewhere. But anyhow, so that's one reason. You should start using all the CPUs and reduce the number of x86 servers, right? The other reason is they're often talking to the database on IBM, on the Power box already, which means if you can move even the Linux application to run on the same server, you save a lot of latency. So you don't have to go out to external network with all the components that you have, first of all, have to buy and so on. But also there will be latency and some, well, reasons for performance issues. So if you run everything and you're using the internal network, using on the bus, that's a lot of benefits for your application for sure.
So how you are able to manage your own business as well as working as contractor for IBM?
Yes, but it's only me in the company right now. So I started it for this project with IBM. I don't have any right now any thoughts of growing it. I might in the future, of course, but it's very easy. So it's just monthly. I have an external firm that take care of the accounting things and stuff like that. So it's not a lot of work. Of course, I have the website. I have to update it and keep that. But otherwise, it's not a lot of effort in that today.
That's great. And also so you have two different businesses. One is built on power and another is IBM. I
Competence.
Competence.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not so. That's, as I said, it's just a portal, right? So just this Wix website that I updated. Well, I should keep it more updated, I guess, but it's not a lot of, and I don't charge anything for it. It doesn't. Well, it costs me a little bit, right? But I do that as a hobby, so that's fine. Now, actually, Built on Power is my company, but I work full time with IBM again. So it's like a normal job from that perspective.
That's great. And also, tell me, you as a vice president of Common Europe.
Yes. So that's I'm happy to be back on the board of directors for Common Europe. I was engaged in the umbrella organization Common Europe for several years, and I quit in 2019. My career was actually taking another path, so I was moving off the platform. But then IBM called me and wanted me in this project, so I came back to the power community, right? And then I became vice president in June at their board. So, and that is a great organization. So there's a lot of passionate people just like myself, really skilled, and they do this this is a hobby for us. So we don't charge anything. This is voluntarily work that we're doing. So as I said, the next year we already start planning for the conference in June, and we do a lot of things, so webinars and smaller events throughout the year. But so that's an umbrella organization, as I said, which is I think we have 17 different local user groups. In Sweden, there is a local user group doing events and so on in Sweden for the IBM and Power customers in Sweden and throughout Europe. So what we do also, we gather them. They are all members, so one representative from each country or local user group. Sometimes there is several user groups in the same country. Switzerland, for example, so they have one German-speaking user group and one French-speaking user group. So we gather them together, which is highly appreciated. Twice a year they meet and they share the experience and the knowledge and what they're doing and how they're doing things and what's working for them in their country. So could be that some country are arranging a hackathon, right? And some other country, we've been thinking about doing that, but we've never done it before. Can you help us out? And of course, they get the help they're needed. So it's really good and a very, as I said, strong user group community around this platform. That's great.
So, what are your objectives as a president?
So I'm the vice president. So there is a president who's Juan Manuel Alcudia from Spain. Well, of course, we always try to grow, right? Both the organization, we're trying to find new, and we have two new countries coming up hopefully next year. That we will help them starting local user group in those countries. But the main thing for us is, first of all, to just help the local user groups with whatever they need and want. But also the flagship event, which is the Common Europe Congress in Prague in June. We want that to be as successful as possible. We want that to grow, and also we want to make sure it has the right content that the members and the customers are looking for. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, we're going to extend it a little bit. And the reason is that the face-to-face meeting from IBM do their own conferences, right? So they have it's called the TechU, Technical University. But it's been virtual the last couple of years. And when we talk to both customers, but also IBM business partners and others, they're really looking forward to have this face-to-face conference again. So this is where we're going to extend it a little bit with the more content than we usually do. Hopefully we can find a new audience for not just Prague, but other future events as well. So that's, I would say, our goal for next year.
And I can also see knowledge is power on your website.
Yes, I mean, this is back to IBMI competence, I would say. So, I mean, skills and knowledge is everything. So if you don't know anything about this platform, in this case, I mean, this is a bigger topic, but in this case, you don't know what you can do with it. As I said, some companies left the platform because they thought they had an old system. They thought it was the old-fashioned server, but it's not. Maybe your application would, because you didn't do anything, and you never learned the latest technologies. You didn't send anyone to conferences. You didn't put them in education, right? So for me, it's crucial that as many as possible knows as much as possible what you can do with the platform. So if you're already on, you should stay, right? But also, besides that, if you don't know much about it, you should learn about it, and you should take a look at it. Most likely, especially if you're into this business application area, this is a great platform for building your software on, for sure. So that is about education. So I put together also earlier this year a blog post, I think it was on LinkedIn, about this. I'm frustrated about it because people say, you don't see students coming out of school knowing about RPG language. No, but you didn't see that about R, the programming language for AI a couple of years ago. It was not around, right? You're sending people to courses. You start teaching them if it's important for your business, which RPG and COBOL is, right? So, and there is so much things going on. There are so many. Well, the user group community, of course, we give options for education, but there are also in Europe, a lot of small local, I would say, companies, for example, educating people. So in Sweden, this company named Appehl, working together with the Gothenburg University, they've done it for 5 years, I think, put together this RPG, maybe 10 weeks course, right? So you don't know anything about RPG programming language. At the end, you're productive, and actually you can start working for Apple or for others, building application on this on this platform. So no, it's really, really important. And IBM has a lot of core. Well, they put together their own curriculum still. So there are courses in their network of, they call it distributors. You know, you have this IBM as a company, then you have big distributors, and they have, under the distributors, you have business partners. So you can go reach out to the local business partner, and you can find where you can learn programming or system management or security or perform whatever your needs are. So yeah, education is important.
So summing up, what do you say to my audience as a president, as a founder of a company, as also a person who is working in IBM?
I would say take a look on both IBM Power as a platform, as a server platform, and just compare it to x86, which is normal today. But everybody buys it because everybody just buys it. Now, well, take a look. Depending on your application, there are alternatives out there. And also, if you're a programmer, take a look at in the RPG programming language, for example, and also open source, of course. But there are one website called Pub400, pub400.com. This is a place where you can sign up for your IBM system. You can create a user and log in and start programming on that. And there is a lot of online courses where you can start learning this platform, because it is a great platform. I have a presentation that called IBM I Explained and IBM Power Explained as well. And I was doing this just 2 weeks ago, and the audience said, why don't we know about this? Why this is so good, what you're talking about. It's very, as I said earlier, very innovative in many, many ways. Even the power server, if you look at the RISC-based, power-based servers, way more modern than x86, for example, and so on. So that's my message. Take a look at IBM I and IBM Power, and you would probably be, hopefully you will be surprised and impressed and eager to learn more about it. And maybe the same for you, Sia. You don't know much about it, right? We can start with you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So
thanks again for inviting me. This was a lot of fun, and again, I like what you're doing. Reaching out to people and start interviewing. You learn yourself, right? And your audience learn the stuff. So that's very good.
So as a person who is into technology from long time, as a person who is understanding the both side of the business of technology, software, hardware, and also understanding how it works, and also understanding the mechanism of it, helping people and companies. So what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
I've seen a few, which I think is interesting, because you're going outside, not just IT, right? There was this filmmaker and others. No, it's great. And this is also back to the message to your student. I mean, I'm talking from this perspective that IBM I is the best platform for everything on earth, which is not, of course. Some kind of application should run on Azure or AWS or whatever. But and this is what I like with you. You're going wide and trying to learn about different things, and that is key, right? So, because this is like a toolbox. IT and technology is like a toolbox, and if you just have one, which is the hammer, and you try to solve all the problems with this hammer, you're not solving all the problems, right? You just fix things when you can have this nail. So do that. And continue with this job that you're doing. It is important, right? And if you don't have thousands of viewers, you have at least hundreds that are interested, and a few that really learn stuff, right? And you can even change people's future. They are getting interested in making films instead. Okay, and that's really good. I like that.
I personally did masters in software engineering, also bachelors in.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a tough one, right? So that's.
And also bachelors in computer science and engineering. So right now I'm interviewing and talking with experts like you who are already in the industry from long time, solving different technological problems and handling different projects, and interacting and doing conferences and making things possible. Talking with experts like you around the world, what I'm going to learn and how this knowledge is going to be helpful for me if I work in IT in coming days.
So
okay.
Continue. You said about you're doing this and you have your graduation and now you're reaching out to different technologies. So yeah, that's good. I mean, in just a few years' time, you will be interviewed, right, about your own expertise, perhaps. So what's your plan? What are you going to do? What's the area you're most interested in?
Right now I'm getting trained as a DevOps engineer.
Okay, yeah, no, it's great, right? And the whole industry is still growing, and it will grow. I mean, everything is software. More and more is software. Even the car, the Swedish, well, Chinese Swedish car, the maker Volvo said a few years back, they are a software company. So, okay, well, you're making cars, but it's for them the message was it's so important with software, right? It's everywhere, and yeah. And back to the thing that I was talking about, IBM, as I said, well, if you listen to me, maybe it sounds like I think IBM is the best for all kinds of application, which is not the case, right? So you have software on your watch. It should not be programmed in the RPG programming language, for example. So, but if you talk at the kind of application we normally see, the back-end high transactional system that is where the data is built mainly relational, the kind of database application. Then it should be running on IBM. But again, it's welcome to the IT industry. I love it, and it's totally different than when I started. Right back then was PC server was quite new, and I knew everything. I knew the hardware. I knew the operators. I could install the operators. I knew the network. I could create this network, Ethernet and everything, and domains and everything. And now it's difficult to just keep track of your little piece of in your industry, right? Or you need, but on the other hand, you need to have the network, and this is also what I like with you. You're growing your personal network. Now you know how to talk to if there is an IBM thing or relation database. This is what it is like today. You have to have a wide network of people helping you, but also helping customers solving their issues.
So, how this experience, talking with experts like you around the world, how this experience is going to be helpful for me in coming days if I work in IT?
No, but I just, well, again, just to have the different views of things and get the insight from others and people like me and all the people that I've seen on your YouTube channel are happy to share their expertise, right? And helping especially younger people that are interested in what you're doing. And this is human. This is what everybody does. If you go down to someone making shoes, right, and you start asking questions about how it is making shoes, they would talk about that for 4 hours without any breaks, and that you learn from that, right? And you get the wider perspective and skills in different areas. So, and you should not stop. And this is what I see often, that people are, when they are getting into the 30s or 35, maybe they have their families and they start getting a little bit, they don't have the same energy, but then they stop being curious. They stop being, wanting to learn more. And that's dangerous, not the right word perhaps, because sometimes that's normal, right? But try to do whatever you can, at least every year, do something, take a course in your area or something else, right? There could be hobbies and what you do in your spare time, because that's also important for you to grow as a person. But also I would say that attracts as an employer, normally I tell people to not hire skills, first of all, but their attitude of people, how they are as humans and how they I mean, it's not to solve a problem, for example, it's not that you solve it right away, but you have the right attitude to solve it as quickly as possible. And that could be, just going out to your network. And this is also why we talk, what we say to people coming to the conference, right? So this is helping you grow in your network, which can solve problems for your company faster. This is like a return of investment for your company to send someone to this conference, right? Even we can see, and we encourage people to if there's an issue, you've been working on it at your company for days or sometimes weeks or even months, right? Bring that to the conference, because the chance there is someone that knows how to do it, maybe even solve the exact same issue, and they will share it with you. And there you have your return on investment of the money you paid for the conference. So, okay, it was again a long answer perhaps, but it's so important. And you do this. People do this in different ways, but I really like what you're doing. You're doing it for yourself, but in the meantime, you share it with others. But I encourage them to do maybe not the exact same part, but start a podcast. Do small things. Do a meetup. Meetup is a lovely platform for, when you find a place, you arrange this meetup, invite someone to speak, and then you will have a small community. And that's just one way to do something similar, right? Learning by teaching at the same time. Another thing I want to mention is producing PowerPoints, actually. Sounds more boring perhaps, but when you do it, you learn a lot. So as I mentioned, I have this IBM Explain or Power Explain, and I have 5-10 different presentations. You have to produce the slides, right? You have to learn things, and I've been really out, and still those presentations I go out way out of my comfort zone, right? So really deep down to the technology that few people in the world, I mean, not at least outside of IBM, knows about. But I try to, and I'm honest and say I don't know this, but this is what I read, and this is the source I found on Wikipedia, for example, and this is how it works. And then I learn, right? I grow as a person while doing the presentation, and then people, of course, learn from me, and they don't have to do it, but they can do themselves another presentation for something else, for example, and then everything grows.
So that's a great thing. That's a valuable thing that I'll keep in my mind, whatever you said. And also people who are watching and listening to you will definitely follow and also put in their development. Also, you will be the reason for their growth as well with your advices.
Oh, very good. So personal growing, and this is also what we do at the conferences. I go to in the US as well. You have the very, very technical presentations and sessions, of course, but also personal development, we call it, where you learn different things to be a bigger person or grow in other areas. And I always enjoy going and look at them because you learn things, and it's great and very important.
I'll put your web links in the description of this video on YouTube. People who find the video on YouTube can see the work that you're doing, can see the service that you're providing.
Very nice. Thank you very much for doing that. And again, thank you for inviting me, and keep up the good work. This is lovely.
And also I'll put on the screen as well your web links. They can see the entire video.
Okay. Nice.
And can you spell your websites or your presence to my podcast listeners?
Yeah. I can send it to you, mean?
Can you spell it?
You mean the builtonpower.com?
Yeah.
That's builtonpower.com. So it's solutions built on power. And then I have the IBM competence in one word, IBMicompetence.com. That's the two major websites. And of course, Common Europe, if you're interested in Common, COMEUR.org is the Common Europe umbrella organization I'm also working with, and Common.org in the US. That's the big organization in the North America.
Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
You can, of course, for sure.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet,
you
social media,
everywhere? This, whatever you want, as long as you don't try to cut something out and want to change my message, right? So,
yeah,
no worries. Just go ahead and use it.
Thank you again for your valuable time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.